Sun Spiral. This is a bit of an impromptu stream. I hadn't actually intended to do one today. If you've listened to the podcast that we released on Monday, I did say we were supposed to have a BT engineer coming, so I wasn't going to be able to do the live stream. They've let me down, unfortunately. So I thought I'd just hop on just to do a quick 5 minutes just to sort of keep the momentum going. On Monday's, well, during Monday's podcast, I talked about inspiration and I went through some tips on how to find inspiration in things like going for a walk, doing a bit of writing, having a mood board, those kinds of things. So do have a listen if you get the chance. It's only a short episode, it's 15 minutes, and I'll put a link in the comments to this live stream once I finish. One thing that I've started since Monday is I've started looking at inspiration of my own and thinking of other ideas of where to get inspiration. And I've actually picked up this book, which is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Um, I've written the title on a post-it note because I often find with these live streams that writing comes out back to front. So I've practiced my mirror writing. So hopefully you can see it's The Artist's Way. It's by Julia Cameron. It's quite an old book. I think that it was only published in the 90s, but has been continuously reprinted since then. I bought this book about 2 years ago and never really got round to using it properly. And then just after Christmas, Ben started having a look at it and he started following through it. And as often happens, I found that he was using it and thought, oh, well, it must be interesting then. So I started having a look myself. And I've actually started doing the proper program. Now, if you don't know what the Artist's Way is, it's actually within the book, there's a 12-week creativity program, and it's designed for people who maybe feel that their creativity is a little bit blocked, maybe they're lacking a bit of inspiration, or even if they have sort of felt in the past that they're quite creative, even back in childhood, but haven't really been able to develop their own creativity, whether because they fell into a job or a lifestyle that didn't allow for creativity, or whether they took their creativity in a different direction and are now looking at sort of different ways to progress. Um, and I am looking to develop that, I suppose, as I've said in the podcast before. I love to write, and I enjoy writing for pleasure. A lot of the writing that I've done over the last 10, 15 years has been very much work based. So it's been very much around human resources, personal development, training, education, all really, really good stuff, and all really creative stuff. But I also write poetry and I also write creatively. So I write fiction, and that's sort of fallen away a little bit. So I'm looking now to try and, as you know, from a personal point of view, trying to develop that side a little bit more. So I've gone back to this book. Now, what happens in the Artist Way is, it's basically, as I said, it's a 12-week program, and there's a set of particular things that you do. One of them is to write your, it's called morning pages, and it's basically 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing every day, which I find quite difficult, because not because I find it hard to write, but because in my head I'm often writing with an audience in mind, and I'm often sort of perfecting and tweaking and editing as I go, which I think is one of the issues that I'm trying to deal with, which is good. So being able to just write, to just have a thought come into my head and jot it down, it's not quite as easy as it sounds, but I am finding that quite useful. Another thing that is a mandatory part of it is that you do what's called artist dates. So at least once a week you have to do something, an activity that you wouldn't normally do and you do not do with other people. So I've got to sort of take myself off, whether I take myself off, I don't know, to a museum I haven't been to before, or just to go for a walk, find a book, watch a film that wouldn't normally be my thing. So those are kind of the two mandatory elements. The the morning pages and the artist date. And then there's all sorts of other exercises that you go through to try and look at what's blocked your creativity. So I'm really excited to get stuck into this. So I wanted to do a very quick live stream just to introduce what I'm doing, but mostly to see if other people have got any experience of doing this before. So I'd be really interested to know if you've use the artist's way yourself. I'd love to hear about it. If you've done what I did, bought the book a little while ago, or looked into this kind of program but never actually got round to it, is it something that you might consider doing at the same time as I'm doing, and we can maybe work together on? Or if it's something that, is just new to you and you like the idea of. So if you can, please get in touch, particularly if you've like either done it before and can give me some feedback on it. That would be really helpful. But also if it's something that you're kind of interested in doing as well and have never quite got round to, I'd be really interested to hear from you. So as I do the live streams over the week, I won't go into a lot of detail because with this sort of thing, it's very private. Even when you do your morning pages, you're not supposed to even look back on what you've said yourself. It's really a brain dump. It's getting things out there. So there's a lot of things within it that are really very personal and wouldn't be shared, but I will kind of update on the kinds of things that I've been doing and how I'm finding it as I go. So if I can find a buddy or someone to do it alongside me, that would be really good. The only other thing that I wanted to do while I'm here is to just share a little bit of advice. Now, I haven't mirror written this, so you'll see this back to front probably, but it's the George Lois book, Damn Good Advice for People with Talent. And I was having another flip through this sort of around the time I was doing the live stream last week. And there's another piece of advice that I really wanted to share, which was about his anti-slogan, George, be careful. Again, you probably see that back to front. But one thing that he is feels very strongly about is risk taking, and that's really the only way to be creative. So I just wanted to read the passage that goes alongside this section in the book, just to give a little bit of inspiration. So, my anti slogan, George, be careful. Looking up from my crib on a dark and stormy night, God commanded, George, be careful. I remember it well. My earliest childhood recollections were punctuated by three words from the lips of my mother: George, be careful. They have been a refrain throughout my life, a sincere admonition from the lips of people who have always meant well, but never fathomed my attitude towards life and work. In the act of creativity, being careful guarantees sameness and mediocrity, which means your work will be invisible. Better to be reckless than careful, better to be bold than safe, better to have your work seen and remembered, or you've struck out. There is no middle ground. So hopefully that might have inspired you today. It certainly inspired me. I'm going to go off now and do a few more of my artist way exercises. But as I said, if you've got any experience of using that kind of program or that program in particular, I'd love to hear from you. So I'll be back on the live stream next week. It will be a bit more planned out next time because, as I said, it was an impromptu one today. I hadn't actually intended to do a live stream pretty much until I just got here. um, Next week's podcast episode is on strategy, and I'm going to be talking to Ben again about developing a personal strategy and possibly tying that in with the episode we did on OKRs and objective setting. So that should be really interesting and helpful. And then I'll follow up with a live stream on that next week. So thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.